Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Girl Boss Method podcast, hosted by myself, Ritu Bra. So this is actually an insight into our program today. So with the Girl Boss, we work through a couple of different educational topics, and this was requested a little while back because obviously the ladies, they do request topics within their check-ins. So if they have, let's say, for example, something that they're struggling with or something that they're actually just really curious about, then that allows me an opportunity to actually present the topic and offer my expertise and my take on whatever topic that is. So that some of the topics that we cover, they'll be to do with fitness, they'll be to do with lifestyle. There's some mindset work in there. So even going as far as like planning goals and looking at, future goals, and also nutrition as well. So there's so many different topics that we work through each week. So I'm going to take you through today's, just for clarity and sort of the time of year that it is. I'll let you know that it's actually it's a Monday evening, so 23rd of October 2003, depending on when you are listening back to this episode. Right, so today's topic is called fitness acronyms. So why is this important? So I'll tell you why, basically. So why are fitness acronyms used, and what for what benefit? So when we're thinking about planning gym sessions, or, me as a coach, if I'm writing my session plans for my clients, etc., I will be giving them very short form acronyms, let's say, and sometimes if it's not to do with their programming, it just might be something that's related to like lifestyle, let's say, or just like maybe even a general term. And the reason that we use it is because some of these terms are so long-winded. They're really long. They can be quite wordy. So I'll just throw one out there right now, because we will be going through a list and I'll be talking through everything. But the word NEAT. So a couple of weeks back, we did, or I did a training on NEAT. And you might be thinking, what on earth is NEAT? The acronym for that is, NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Now, imagine having to explain or say that word constantly. It's just a bit, let's just cut to the chase, right? So quite often, that's why we do things, and that's why we have various different acronyms. I'm losing my words now. Okay. So for those of you that are inside the program itself, inside the Girl Boss program, you will have full access to these slides. You'll be watching, hopefully, the video version, and you'll be able to access all the information that I'm talking about, which is all on the screen. And for those of you that are listening in and almost listening in as an outsider, you'll be listening via the podcast. And unfortunately for you, you'll only be able to listen to the audio. But I will help you out here, and I'm going to explain or basically read everything off. But it's just you won't have any visuals to go with this. Okay. So the first one that we have is BMI. So BMI is basically stands for body mass index. So imagine having to say body mass index every single time. And so this is just a very generalized term. It's not always so popular these days. People don't always like to use BMI, but it is, a measure. Ideally, it's a measure of your body fat based on your height and your weight. So really, we don't always look at it, but it's quite interesting to look at, especially when we're thinking about calculating calories or macros, etc. Some of those things are quite important. So, you know, height and weight. Moving on, HR, heart rate. I think that's quite easy. Heart rate isn't really a long one to spell out, really. But again, just to explain, your heart rate, when we're thinking about that, is the number of times your heart beats per minute. And we can measure this using fitness watches and also activity trackers. There used to be some really old ones when I first started out in gyms, actually. I think they might be used now still, maybe by more professional athletes, but they used to have a band that you would put just sort of just below your sternum, your breastbone, and that would kind of go all the way around, you know, the upper part of your abdomen, just below your chest. And that would be a way of them kind of reading into your, like, your heart rate, etc. So it's that, you know, now we've got fitness watches. It's all very, very easy. But yes, the idea is just to monitor your exercise intensity. So we're looking at, you know, when we're thinking about exercise training zones as well. So, you know, you'll see percentages and stuff as well. Yeah, that's also where it's quite handy actually as well. And that's going to differ to each individual. So not everyone's going to have the same resting heart rate. There will be figures that will kind of sit between that are seen as healthy. Some people who maybe quite young might have faster pulses, and actually females have faster generally than men. We won't go into that too much now. So I'm always aware of time with these as well. Try and keep them nice and short and sweet and straight to the point for you. So next up, this one's a very popular one, HIIT. So I don't know how you would say that to try and indicate the fact that there are two I's in there, but that basically stands for high intensity interval training. So this is a workout method that alternates between short, intense bursts of exercise and then brief rest periods. So quite often, well, I guess before I'd really heard the term HIIT thrown around, and I am going back quite far, like even like 20 years ago, we'd almost look at it as being like, I don't know, like circuit training or something. But there are various different ways of using HIIT within a workout. So you could use lots of different exercises. So you could have like very higher, you know, lots of like a variety of exercises with that, almost like a circuit. Or the other option is to use, like, say, for example, a cardio machine. You can do HIIT on like a cross trainer. So you would be, you know, going full pelt for like, let's say 30 seconds. And then maybe you might give yourself, you know, another 30-second rest, for example. And that's an example of like a higher intensity interval training method. The next one, not really used as much, generally used when we're thinking about people adding in additional cardio. So again, we were talking about the lower intensity type stuff earlier, and we're thinking about the heart rate zones. LISS basically stands for low intensity steady state. Okay, so it's a lower intensity sustained cardio workout. So for example, like walking or slower or low, you know, lower intensity cycling. So yeah, we're thinking about those. You're on your treadmill when you're in the gym, you're on a treadmill. We're thinking about those incline walks, like moderately, you know, with the incline, not really, really high. But, you know, at the end of the day, as you progress, you might well get to the point where you are on quite a high incline. But it's all about just trying to keep that steady state activity going. And that's basically what that means. DOMS. Now, many of us have heard DOMS. Some of us experience DOMS and some do not. Okay. So DOMS basically stands for delayed onset muscle soreness. So this is the muscle pain and stiffness that occurs a day or two after intense exercise. Now, DOMS can actually take up between, I think, 48 to 72 hours to actually show up. So it's really important to understand when, I think, well, if you're a beginner, you know, or you're not really that sort of well, you've not really been exercising for that long, or you're not really that clued up with some of these terms, and they feel quite confusing. And maybe even within your exercise regime, you tend to do the same stuff a lot of the time, or maybe you do a different type of exercise. You might not have ever experienced DOMS. And again, even for those people that do train quite intensely, they might not experience this as well. So with the DOMS, if you do get it, again, it's just differentiating whether or not that pain, that sensation is linked to the fact that the muscle's been working. Like some people refer it to as being like a pump, if you like, or, for example, the other day, actually, I was doing a new exercise, and this is usually commonly where it might happen as well. It's doing a new exercise style, like, well, I'd say new. I just hadn't used a chest press machine in the gym for a long time, because I've been doing a lot more with dumbbells, and purely because of the angle that I had to have my hands in and my arms in the position for this machine, I ended up, let's say, being in a different or training the muscles in a different way, and that has resulted today in some muscle soreness. So today my triceps are hurting a bit, basically. Right, so moving on, there are lots here. Okay, so I did say I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet. RM's not really used that much. We might say rep max, but again, that's the maximum amount of weight that you can lift for a number of given repetitions. Okay. PR is quite a fun one. That's usually like related to your like best performance in a particular exercise or activity. You could have a PR when it comes to a time for running a distance. So if you were to do like a 5K and you're improving and getting better at that 5K run, your PR, you might set a new PR someday. And then we've got RPE, which is the rate of perceived exertion. So this is probably not really used so much for, let's say, beginners in the gym. Oh no, sorry, correct me there. It can be used. So when you're thinking about working during an exercise, having a rate of perceived exertion or an RPE is actually quite important, especially if, for example, your coach or me, if I've set you an exercise which is quite new and quite tough, perhaps maybe you're using a barbell in this exercise and it's in a different position. So potentially in a position where if you were to really think about lifting maximally, you might, hurt yourself or injure yourself or feel uncomfortable, for example. So especially at the beginning, it's nice to kind of start, especially when you start any program, is to think about the RPE. And generally if I'm getting someone to basically learn or learn and acquire a skill set within an exercise itself, I might sort of get them to sit on an RPE, if we're thinking 0 to 10, of around like 5 or 6. So are you working 5 or 6 out of 10? So 10 being the hardest. And then obviously if it's something that you're really well conditioned to, then we need to start pushing that RPE up. So for most of you, I want you to be feeling more like those 7s and 8s. There are spaces for 9s, maybe 10, but really when we're thinking about changing body composition and trying to sort of develop muscle and stuff, it's not really that important. It's probably something that's used more so with people that are like lifting for power, for example. They will go absolutely all out. You guys do not need to do that. Okay, work hard, but work sensibly. And then we've got AMRAP. AMRAP is basically, so this is probably more to do with like a circuit-based type exercise. So as many rounds or reps as possible. So again, this is a format used in workouts to complete as many rounds or repetitions of a set exercises within a specified time. So for those of you that train from home, this is a really good way of us trying to get your heart rate up, trying to get you working a little bit harder, especially when it comes to using this format. Then we've got BMR. BMR, your basal metabolic rate. So again, this is the number of calories your body needs to maintain basic functions at rest. So this is like survival, basically. This won't even be, your BMR is not actually responsible for you getting in the car and going to work and walking to the shops and that sort of thing. That will come on to a little later when we start thinking more about how to calculate your calories and considering things like, I haven't put it in here, but your daily activity level or your physical activity level. So those could be called DAL or PAL. And I actually haven't included that in this one. But I do hope to kind of do a part 2 really to the fitness acronyms. I'm losing it again. But I definitely want to do a part 2 at some stage. We'll start putting some like more advanced stuff in there. Okay. Right. Moving on. So we talked about NEAT at the beginning. So your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So what this means is the energy expended for everything that we do that is not sleeping, eating, or sports like exercise, such as like walking, fidgeting, or doing household chores. Okay. So I'm going to basically say I kind of put walking in that because I kind of put it as like trying to increase your step count and you're trying to increase your NEAT. So yes, it is your non-exercise activity. But yeah, so, you know, we might look at walking as exercise, but I would put it as all those other things that your body does. When we start to reduce the calories in our diet, if we're not eating very much, we actually stop doing things like fidgeting, and it can affect things like our sleep and our energy levels. So it's really important that we kind of consider our NEAT as well. So for those of you that have been, for example, if you're listening and if you are in reduced calorie mode, it can, whether that's your goal, whether your goal is to actually reduce calories or increase calories, you might find that if you're not actually eating much, you're not going to have energy. So your body will shut down. So it's really important that whether you are looking to gain muscle or gain weight, or whether you are looking to lose fat or lose weight, you still need to think about NEAT, and you need to be making sure and ensuring you're actually eating enough calories. So you need to eat more than your actual BMR. Okay. If you're unsure how to calculate that, or you want a little bit more help on finding that out and finding, how many calories you should be having, then you can send me a message. I'll actually, within this, so those of you in the program, you've got my number, you can send me a message. But those of you that are listening on the podcast, you can find me on Instagram and send me a direct message on there. But I'll tell you my links and stuff at the end here. So as we move through body fat, or BF, and then percentage sign. So body fat percentage. So this will be used quite often. Proportion of your body weight that is composed of fat as opposed to lean tissue like muscle and bone. We're going to move through these a little bit quicker again. I feel like I can see a repetition in myself already. 1 RM, 1 repetition max. So the maximum amount of weight that you can lift for a single repetition in a given exercise. So we don't actually perform this very often or really at all. Some people do. Okay, we'll leave that for the strength, the power lifters. But for 1 RM, we can actually calculate this. So this allows us, especially when we're using the Girl Boss app and we're using the training programs and stuff, we're able to calculate just by you inputting the reps, the reps and the sets, etc., and how many reps and how much weight you've lifted. We can work out your single, your 1RM. Okay, I've already mentioned DOMs, so again, I've kind of repeated myself here, and I've written muscle pain and discomfort there. BCAs, this is a common one. So for those of you that like to, you're keen or interested in on supplementation and things, quite often BCAs are, they're included in protein shakes and stuff. But these are amino acids, and these are the branched chain amino acids. So they're essential amino acids that play a role in muscle growth and repair. We will go into some more detail on this within our protein trainings. I'm really looking forward to definitely doing a training on proteins. So again, with the protein, we'll be talking about amino acids and non-essential, essential, etc. Okay, so we've kind of come to the end of the acronyms, but I've kind of put in a few more fitness terms or concepts that I thought maybe you might find helpful. So for those of you that are watching, just have a quick read of these, but we've got things like supersets, drop sets, Tabata. I will tell you what Tabata is now. So again, really, this could have gone with the high intensity interval training method, but this is more specific because it involves like a 20 seconds all out exercise followed by 10 seconds of rest. And then that's repeated for a total of 4 minutes. So that is very specific. That is what Tabata means. Plyometrics, exercises that involve explosive movements like jumping and hopping, and these can help improve power and agility. Not to forget that plyometrics, they have a really important role in helping us to increase our bone density. It's so important, ladies, that as we age and as we get older, we do try and promote things like hopping and jumping. So that's really, really important. And that's not to say that you're going to have to start jumping off boxes and stuff, but just even as simple as like light skipping. Skipping can be a form of plyometrics. For those of you that are Pilates, or into Pilates, let's say you do Pilates reformer, there's actually a jump board on the end of a Pilates reformer. That's really good. For those of you that perhaps maybe, jumping on the ground doesn't feel, you don't feel quite ready or safe for it. It's such a cool way of adding in some plyometric exercise. So not forgetting that. Other exercises or other terms and concepts. We are getting right to the end, guys, I promise you. So isometric exercise. So that's muscle contractions where the length of the muscle stays the same. So we would say that this would include exercises like your planks and your wall sits. So this is where you're holding, you're holding a position, and your muscles are working and you can feel them working within that wall sit and that plank. And I honestly, if you've never done a wall sit, I challenge you to do like 3 minutes and tell me you don't feel it. So everything is not just about, flexing the muscles and lengthening them. So I'll just tell you now, but the concentric and eccentric phases of exercise, isometric work is so important. Flexibility, so the range of motion that your joints and muscles, which can be improved through stretching exercises. And actually, I'm going to include another one, mobility. So flexibility is more about, I would probably liken it more to like the muscles as well. And the mobility would be your, more of an active range, your ability for your joints to move through range actively. Okay. Yeah, it can be passively actually as well. So yeah, just not to get those two confused. And we've got static stretching, for example, and dynamic stretching. And I just thought I would like put these out there as well. So static is, you know, we're holding those positions. Typically we do them after a workout. Not always. Some of you might actually benefit from doing static stretching at the beginning of your sessions. And this will all depend on what we are trying to achieve. So if they're, you know, if you've got a muscle that, like, I don't really want to use this term, but like almost inhibited, you know, if you find that, you know, stretching a muscle helps you inhibit that muscle before you do an exercise, you know, especially if something kind of takes over, that can be helpful. And then dynamic stretching is great. It's a good way of warming up as well. So we're going to increase our flexibility. We're going to prepare our body for exercise. That's often done before a workout. And especially for those of you that are doing home workouts, dynamic stretching is like, you know, or dynamic movements, let's say, is such a good way of kind of getting that in. So we're thinking about things like, you know, your windmills and, you know, even walking lunges. So you can, you know, I know we think of lunges as being a really hard exercise, and believe me, it is, but walking lunges, you know, doing some rotations with those lunges as well is a really good way of dynamically moving the muscles. You know, it might well be that you are doing lunges within your actual session, but you'll have some dynamic mobility for that at the beginning. That kind of concludes our session today, guys. Thank you so much if you've got this far. So those of you that are on the Girl Boss program, this is our Monday evening educational topic that we've done today. Any questions, please send me a message. Get them ready. You can ask live as well on Friday, and Friday that will be at 6:30 p.m. This is our wonderful additional live that we do now, and this is all about, you know, Q&A, check-ins as well. We can kind of talk about that. We can catch up, and we can talk about anything that you guys are struggling with in preparation for the weekend, let's say. We just found that starting the Monday with an educational topic was just a really good way of like preparing your mind for the week ahead. And, you know, your mind and your body, especially, you know, sort of heading into the week, especially if the weekend's been quite slow. And then Friday is to try and remind you that, you know, this is a lifestyle change, and it's not Friday switch off and that's it. Let's help. Let us help you. Let me help you navigate yourself or get through the weekend, you know, and help you when, you know, it comes to your training or even like nutrition and stuff as well. So we don't think of nutrition as something we just do for the weekdays, especially when you kind of see a lot of the time on social media, people doing things like cheat meals and cheat days. I always say, we're not The Rock. We are not The Rock. That's being said, there are times where additional calories, you know, like a surplus, so above maintenance, can be quite beneficial at the weekend. But again, we can talk about that one-to-one, you know, within our check-ins, etc., and in our one-to-one chats for those of you on the one-to-one Girl Boss program. Right, so I'd just like to say thank you. And I did say, for those of you listening to the program, if you've got any questions, you can send me a direct message on Instagram, and that's at Richu Bra. So you spell that RICHUBRAR. We will see you here next time.